Dr. Biswajit Roy, Director General, Gujarat Energy and Research Management Institute, known as GERMI, and Mr. Munawar Attari, Managing Director, Fleshman Hillard, India. Thank you, Biswajit and Munawar, for joining and agreeing to share your knowledge with our participants.
Thank you.
I will take just a few minutes to introduce the topic, and then the floor is yours. Reputation as a concept has made inroads into our life and business almost silently. We always talk about people and organizations with a good reputation. Different people may have different interpretations of the term. For instance, for some, it may be an organization which is very ethical. For some, it may be an organization which is financially very sound. For some, it may be an organization which treats its employees very well. The list is almost endless. But what is common in these understandings is that any individual or organization with a good reputation is worthy of praise and merit, period. That's it. However, recently there has been a keen interest in research and practice to understand, define, and capitalize this construct. For us to understand the importance being accorded to reputation, I decided to Google the word before the webinar. Allow me to flash the result so that you can draw your own conclusions. So here we go. Here we go. When I Googled the word reputation, these were the results that popped up. Small wonder then, we have this particular webinar in which we would like to discuss further issues. Today, reputation has become the buzzword, which people are trying to manage. In yesteryears, reputation emerged as a result of what you did or what the organization did. But today, the situation is different. People and organizations are doing reputation or following the tenet, do good and get caught doing good. What would this imply? For us to get a better understanding of doing reputation, let us unpack this concept in our talk with our panelists. In case you have questions, please post them on the chat window and we will try and do justice to as many questions as possible. Biswajit, I'd like to begin with you. Why are companies trying to build and manage their reputation?
Well, as you said, that reputation is an important aspect. As far as we are concerned as individuals, as much as we are concerned about our own reputation, companies are also equally concerned about their reputation. Reputation is more of a matter of perception by the various stakeholders. And reputation gets built over a long period of time. You and I would experience in life that if a new company has come in, we just don't go and buy their products. We might try something, but we don't have faith in them. We have faith. We are loyal to certain products. We are loyal to certain companies. We are loyal to certain brands. And this has taken place over a long, long period of time. So companies willingly, deliberately, as a matter of strategy, invest in creating an atmosphere where their reputation, good part of it, gets built up over a period of time. It's a long drawn thing. It is important for companies to actively work for their positive reputation because it helps in many things. For example, it helps in growth and revenue. If we have been using particular product of a company and the company goes for brand extension, we would tend to believe that since it's coming from the same parent organization, it has some goodness in it. So we will, even without knowing, we will go and try. But if somebody comes as a new product itself, which was not known, we might not go. It attracts customers as well as employees. It helps them get good employees. Today's youth in particular is looking forward to companies that have a environment focus. If as a company we are not responding to the environmental challenges, today's youth probably will not go and join, even if it might be giving a fat paycheck. So these are some of the issues. For example, product line expansion, when that company has to do, if they have a good reputation, they have a good chance that they will succeed. People are also equally concerned about the ethical practices by a company. When it comes to ethics of doing business, all of us sitting here, without having to take names of any organization, if we were to say amongst the top 5 biggest organizations from India, which is the one which is most ethical, all of us will converge to a particular company.
Sure.
And that has been built over more than hundreds of years. So that is why, in my opinion, it is important for companies that they build their reputation deliberately as a matter of a strategy. And some of the things that I have faced while I was working with some of the oil companies is that when you go to the campus for selecting the best talent, depending upon which campus you are going, and if you have a good reputation, you either get day 0 or day 1. Now, if you are able to attract the best talent from the campus, then half the job is done. Because if you are getting good people, they will do good to your organization. As you said, do good, you will get caught in the web of doing good, and people will notice you. So these are some of the reasons in my mind companies are actively trying, and it has become extremely, extremely important in today's world, because in social media, the reputation that one has built over the last couple of decades can actually be lost in a minute. And we have seen some of these things in the recent past. So therefore, I think these are some of the reasons that companies are trying to actively, as a matter of strategy, trying to build their reputation.
Thanks, Biswajit. That is a very interesting insight. Munawar, Biswajit has been talking about all these things that are there. What are the benefits, according to you, of good reputation? Because you've been working with a lot of companies, right? And you would probably be able to sense the benefits, right? You would be able to see the benefits, and probably there are certain benefits which are also documented as a result of good reputation.
Yeah, ma'am, that's true. I mean, for us as PR practitioners, reputation is everything at an individual level, as well as for any corporate or a brand that we work for. Reputation, what is reputation? In very simple terms, the way we define reputation is essentially what an entity is known for. Yeah. So what we get to known for is what our reputation is. And how that really helps organizations is in a simple way, the market rewards reputation. If you have a good reputation, the market rewards it. Now, when I say market, it's a very broad umbrella term. It may not necessarily mean capital markets. It could mean that as well. But it means consumers, it means all your stakeholders, it means employees, it means your partners, vendors. All of them are looking to work with institutions and entities who have a good reputation, who are known to do what they promise to do. I mean, what they say and what they do, essentially, there is no gap in that, and that's what is reputation is all about. And market.
Munawar, I think I need to interrupt you over here, if I may, please.
Yes.
So, Munawar, when you say what they say and what they do, that's something very interesting that you've said, because what they say and what they do, saying, of course, everyone gets to know about it. That's their communication. It could be through their website. It could be through any channel. But what they do they really get it all onto the table where, you say that, okay, whatever they have said, they are really doing all that. Maybe there are certain things which are not brought to the table. And when these issues are found out, right, and that's the time when this crisis starts happening. So can we, really put our hand on our heart and say, there has to be some kind of synergy between saying and doing. And that's why we have this title, Doing Reputation. What is it that it really means?
Yeah, ma'am. I think you've hit on a very soft and vulnerable point actually, because reputation and trust are essentially intrinsically linked, right? When a stakeholder is wondering whether this company is staying true to the promise that they make, whether it is to any of their partners, whether it's a brand promise or whether it's a promise at a corporate level, and if anybody is skeptical about that particular promise, there is a trust deficit. And today we live in a world where there is a deficit of trust. We have a crisis of trust in any case, in institutions, in media, in everywhere that you look, any study that you refer to, you have a crisis of trust. So connected to that, essentially the point that we make, some companies do well, but there are two parts to it. Sometimes they do well, but they are not very good at communicating what they do. And some companies, of course, as you said, there may be a big gap in terms of what they say and what they do. So both are a risk to reputation, and both needs to be addressed at different levels. Now, and that's where the entire environment, social and governance, ESG framework that we all talk about kind of comes into play, where the social and the governance part is very important in terms of what the company is statutorily mandated to do, and what it actually does, and how it presents itself. So all these three things are extremely important. And so that's the first point. The second point that I would like to make is that reputation is also something which protects an organization's license to operate in the marketplace. And that's very important in today's scenario, where we are living in a very volatile and uncertain environment. Yeah, it acts as an insurance cover. It acts as a Teflon. It acts as a shield, where your consumers, your partners, your stakeholders are likely to stay and stand behind you in times of a crisis, when they have seen you in a particular light in the past. You're known to do certain things, and you can immediately certain corporates come to mind on the right or the wrong side in each one of our heads when we think of something so like this. So that's also very important from a reputation standpoint. And of course,
ideally, what you're saying is you hedge your risks.
Yes.
By trying to be, truthful, by trying to, be honest, you're actually hedging your risks. But
yes.
Okay, go ahead, please.
And those are industry risks, those are sectoral risks, and that could also be, something which are specific to a particular organizations. And you have to hedge against all. And the final point on this is the reputation. The benefit of reputation is also that it lowers your cost of business, because it lowers down your compliance cost. It lowers down your cost of business, because just look like an example of 911. The cost of flying, the cost of travel for airlines, for airports, really increased because of the security, parameters and mechanism that the entire industry had to put in place, just because the trust level depleted very quickly. So if you were just to extrapolate that and look at different industries, when you trust an entity more, you're likely to be more vulnerable in front of them, or in the transaction that you conduct with them. You rely more on them. So that brings down your cost of business as well. So broadly, market rewards. Reputation is a hedge, as you articulated, and of course it reduces your cost of doing business as well. The benefits of reputation that I would.
Thanks, Munawar. Biswajit, can I come to you, please?
Mm-hmm.
We say that reputation is an intangible, because as you had started, right, and when you started speaking, and you said it's a perception that is created.
Right.
So if I were to build on what you had said, and I say it's a perception, okay, Biswajit, we agree with you, so which means it's an intangible. So if it is an intangible, how can a good reputation really give a company an edge over competitors or competition?
Well, it's right. Reputation is an intangible. And since it is an intangible, there is no mathematics behind it. So that we conduct a survey, or we come out with a number and say that this company has having reputation score of this much. It's not possible to do it that way. But certain examples will probably, qualitative examples will probably explain.
I'd like to interrupt you in between, please. Yes. We have a reputation institute which is trying to do that. Mm-hmm. So what they do is they have their parameters, and they say, okay, it could be stakeholder based, it could be issue based. So they're trying to arrive at a number based on what is, the responses that they get, and they say, okay, this is how reputation is to be measured.
That's true. What I'm basically trying to say is that we don't have a theory behind it like we have in physical sciences, and that you come out with an accurate number. End of the day, a reputation has to remain an intangible, and it has to remain in perception and perception alone. So it's difficult to measure, difficult to calculate. One bad news about an organization, or one bad or maybe one incorrect response by a manager, by an employee of the organization, and in today's world of social media, can actually mar the reputation which has been built up over a long period of time. Could be 2 decades, could be 3 decades. There are certain businesses which are mostly online businesses nowadays. It is extremely important for them to have good reputation. In some of the surveys, online travel business agencies, they say that 90% of them have said that it is important for them to have good reputation. I, for example, as an individual, maybe most of us as an individual, would not like to do. There are a plethora of online travel sites. We would not like to do business with some of them, but we would like to do business with some of them. This is purely because of the reputation factor. Without taking names, there has been one travel site which has been doing fantastic business, and we often go and we do our business with them. So to that extent, it is an intangible, and it's difficult to measure in that sense, but it does give an advantage over the competitors. Let me take an example which is not too far from today. It's about 7-8 years ago. We had this international auto company which was caught doing some kind of a scandal broke out. They were fudging their emission records. We all know about it. And a smaller company, they had a good reputation before the scandal broke out. A smaller company in their place probably would not have been able to withstand the kind of scandal that broke out against them. But this company was quick to realize that we have made a mistake and it's time for taking some immediate actions. So what did they do? They immediately admitted to their guilt. They immediately apologized to their customers, and they made some structural changes in the organization, which would ensure that events like this, where fudging of records on emissions were taking place, did not take place in future. We are seeing some structural change. We are reading in the media nowadays, some structural changes have been proposed by the entity, which has recently been, mired into all kinds of controversies. Very recent case, which is still going on. So for this auto company, for the one that I am referring to, if there had been a smaller organization which did not carry with itself the kind of reputation this auto company had, probably they would have vanished from doing business. Probably they would probably have ceased to exist. That is why oftentimes we find in India also, when a batch of vehicles is deficient in India and overseas also, when a batch of vehicles has been found deficient in something or the other, the entire batch is being recalled as a proactive measure. It's again directly related to their reputation. It does give them an intangible benefit. So while it is true that it is an intangible, it is equally true that if we have to remain in business, if the companies have to remain in business, they have to take care of their reputation. And this reputation stands good, as Munawar has also said, it's kind of a coating. It helps you in times of crisis. So even though it is intangible, it is important that we actually inculcate this in the people who work in the organization, and we take care that we have more positives about the company than the negatives, more so because we are living in an age of social media.
True, Ms. Vijay, because I know you were involved in one of the major crises in one of the companies, right? So we will come back to that question in just a little while, but I'd just like to add something very interesting that you've said. You were talking about this automobile company and there was this diesel emissions, right? And then they started communicating. So where companies are concerned, since we are talking about doing reputation, we are talking about how does it really create value. It's very interesting because now what companies have also started doing is they've also started adopting silence as a means of communicating what they need to do. So they say, okay, we'll just communicate this much, even though we are doing reputation. And they walk to talk, talk to walk, and they talk. That's very interesting. So that's what research has to say where this is concerned. Thanks, Biswajit, for giving us that information. But then I'd like to press this question still further. Though I know that we've been discussing that it's an intangible. So Munawar, because you have been working in this field, right? Just one last question along those lines, right? I know it's an intangible, right? But can a reputation really be assessed? I don't know whether it can be assessed or not. So either we say that, okay, this company has a ace reputation. I mean, how do we assess it?
Well, I think, we live in a world where perception is reality, right? If I were to just extend that, I would say all the tangibles, all the intangibles today are the tangibles, right? Because if you see, many studies also indicate that the weightage of intangibles, that is perception, brand equity, goodwill on the balance sheet, all of this has only increased over the last couple of decades as far as the overall value of the organization is concerned. So it's a difficult question, and as practitioners, we grapple with this in different ways and means for different clients. Where some clients, I would like to say that reputation, of course, measuring is one thing, but assessing reputation, as you rightly put it, is the right way. Look at this subject, and there are several studies. I mean, some clients look at something called a share of voice, which is in a particular sector, how much conversations do they drive as a brand or as an organization. Once they look at that, they also look at the sentiment connected to that particular message that they want to deliver. Today, you can do sentiment analysis on social media, which indicates as to what is being said about you as a brand and an organization, which is you can say is an inference to the best explanation, right, of what your reputation ideally is, because reputation is what people talk about you when you're not in the room. So when you look at social media and when you look at sentiment analysis, it gives you indications of whether your score, as you may call it, is it improving or not. So that's another way to look at it. Messaging analysis is another way to look at it. For example, you can say a client in the auto industry wants to own the conversations, let's say, around electrical vehicles. Okay, so let's say all the conversations put together in the auto sector on electrical vehicles is about 20% of the overall conversations in the sector. And out of this 20%, the brand gives itself a target to own maybe 50 or 60% of that particular conversation. So that's one aspect of it, the volume aspect of it, or the value aspect of it is the sentiment analysis and whether the conversations are positive, negative, neutral. And once it is neutral or negative, how do we engage with the people involved to provide them the right information to shift the needle to what essentially the brand may want to do. So yeah, there are different ways to look at it. And you also have reputation scores. You do a lot of brand, awareness studies. You do a lot of focus groups on a particular subject across the country. So consumer companies, some of our clients look at it in a very different manner. Whereas B2B organizations that only sell to governments, B2G organizations, they look at reputation in a very different manner. They want to be seen and heard in the right place. And if, let's say, for example, if they're called for certain events, they're called for certain juries, if they're called for certain things in the next 12 to 18 months, they see that as an indication of their reputation improving as well. So yes, awareness, reputation, these are kind of intrinsically linked things, and we do assess this over a period of time, and you can actually measure it as well.
So Munawar, I would just like to add something. So when you're talking about the sentiment analysis and you talk about the positive and you talk about the negative. So recently I just worked with a company and something very interesting emerged. So, there was a lot of negativity that was involved when this particular company was concerned, and a lot of people were getting very negative. So what they did was, you have to correct me whether it's right or it's not right. So what they did was they got hired evangelists and they increased the number of positive posts. Now, when they increased the number of positive posts, what happened was the ratio shifted. It shifted in favor of it. Now, is this the right thing to do, or is it not the right thing to do? Because, that means that you're really not letting people assess the truth, the authenticity in whatever is, being measured. That's your reputation. Because now you're playing games. And all of us are susceptible to what are the final responses that are there. So what are your views on that? Because social media is dicey. I, as a company, may decide to go ahead with brand activism, right? That is only because I want to build my reputation. I want you as a consumer to know that I am, or I have picked up this issue and the company stands by this issue.
Well, there is no right or wrong answer to this. It's a very gray area. And what we can call this is, in colloquial terms, you can call it truth production, right? You produce
What's
more
it? I'm sorry, I missed it.
Truth production, right? You produce more truth than the
Okay.
opposite side.
Very well taken, Munawar. I love the way in which you put it.
That's one way to look at it. But now, with the kind of regulations that have come into place, if these posts are by influencers and stakeholders, and there is a commercial angle involved, you need proper disclosures. And the moment there are proper disclosures, you'll see that it could even be counterproductive. So, of course, yes. So, going back to the earlier point that we are discussing, if your reputation is strong and your customers are your brand advocates and people who understand you, and of course, mostly organizations react in an issue or a crisis time. So they use this during a war situation, and that strategy is very different. In the peace time, in the regular time as well, reputation is an ongoing process, right? Like any other management function. So if it is done properly and your consumers, your partners, your stakeholders are your genuine advocates, they'll stand up for you as well. Yeah. And I think that's the right way to approach this subject. And when you have negativity in social media, some of it may be genuine, some of it may be misplaced, some of it may be because of misinformation. And then there would be people who can correct it. And yes, as a brand, you can transparently, authentically play a role and facilitate that entire conversation as well in a very transparent manner. I think that's what some of the brands are doing, and they also see a benefit in that. But when there is a commercial angle involved and you have influencers, etc., there are strong regulations in several markets and increasingly in India as well, where you have to make proper disclosures. Once you do that, you can do it. But if you don't, that's a slippery slope as well.
So, Munawar, since you've been talking a lot about social media, so I think I would like to take okay, Biswajit is back. So let me just first ask Biswajit an interesting question. Biswajit, we were talking about crisis, right? And how does a good reputation help in crisis? Or, like we can also take it forward and take a look at how does reputation impact business and create value? So very interesting, Biswajit, if you can take both the questions together. And probably after that, then we can focus on social media. But right now, I think this is important for us to go ahead with the crisis bit, which you had brought to the fore. And together with that, how does it really create value?
Having been a practitioner, I will come with certain specific examples that we have faced without taking names of any organization. It is important, company values, trust, as Munawar has said earlier. These are some of the important things that actually help in building a good reputation of any organization. Other factors that make or mar reputation of a company are customer service, product or service quality, brand campaigns, as he has said, employee treatment, how an employee is treated. And why this is important is because in today's world, what we have experienced is that your potential employees who are still in the college, they do not find out about an organization from any other source but from the seniors who have joined the organization. If the senior hasn't been treated well, they would probably shun that company, and it often reflects in, at the campuses, companies going up or down in their ranking in terms of preferences for day 1 or day 2 or day 3. So that's very important. As much as product is important, marketing, brand campaigns are important, so is the importance for employees being treated in an organization. In today's world, more so. The other factors which help are environmental impact. A company cannot just go produce and disappear and leave all the baggage back in where they have been operating. Then CSR or shared values, they also do help an organization in times of crisis. Let me give you an example of how reputation impacts business. One of the largest business houses of the country, which operates out of, say, 100 countries outside India. Products and services are sold in more than 150 countries, has one very clear value that we will not negotiate as far as corruption is concerned. So during the turbulent times in northeastern part of the country, they had been approached by unruly elements for extortion money. They had only two choices, either to pay extortion money and do the business, or not pay extortion money, quit the place, stop operations. And this particular company chose the latter option. They closed down operations. They said, we will not pay any extortion. We will do business the most ethical way. They had to suffer some losses for some period of time. But when the operations closed down, the locals faced untold miseries. Salary nahi mil rahi thi, paise nahi aa rahe the. And then the state requested them to come and restart the operations. They went back with a sense of pride that they are ethical. They started their operations. They still operate out of that country, or out of that place, out of those areas, without having to pay any extortion money. On the contrary, some other competitors who paid extortion money have disappeared. They no longer exist. Some of them have been taken over by this company. So this is the importance of reputation in building business.
I have a question to ask you, Biswajit, if I may. When we talk about these companies, and these examples are by far many, where companies have decided to take on an ethical stand and they say, okay, we will do this, right? Or we will not do this. However, my question is, Biswajit, this is only the prerogative of companies which are financially very strong. If it's a small company, right, where, like their sustenance depends on doing business on a daily basis, or maybe, on a monthly basis, can they really take on this stand and they say that, no, we are going to be very ethical, because the company would shut down? So how would we really like to go ahead with it? So this would ideally mean that, these smaller companies, they don't have room, they don't have scope for building their reputation.
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm basically saying is that oftentimes these smaller companies will not face this kind of situations. It is the extortion demands will not go to, extortionists will not go for 100 rupees, 200 rupees, 2000 rupees to a smaller company. These kinds of demands, these kinds of situations will come to medium-sized or large-sized companies. And some of them will acquiesce, some of them will stand their ground. Those who stand their ground will continue to operate. Those who actually, in order to make some quick bucks over a reasonable period of time, will listen to those extortionists. They will probably over a longer period of time disappear, because the extortion will not end at the number that they are having today. It will successively keep on increasing. Therefore, it is difficult. Therefore, every company, irrespective of their size, will have to take a position that they are in for it or they are out of it. If you do that, then you, yes, have the risk. Smaller companies will also have to take that position. And there are other means available. State support is available. Legal means are available. Sometimes if you are unlucky, you may probably have to quit business and do something else. But more often than not, what people are able to survive if you're on the path of honesty. The moment you get into these kinds of unruly elements in their hands, if you play into their hands, there is no end to it. And that is where reputation helps. Because this particular company had reputation, the state called them back, the people called them back. So if you have reputation, and there have been cases in civil services, for example, very competent people who have been transferred, people from the district have come and said that you cannot be transferred, the administration cannot transfer them. They have done such good work. So reputation does help. As far as crisis is concerned, we did go through in my some of my previous experiences. We had this large PSU, a Navratna company in oil and gas business, and we had one of the biggest fire in the history. It got national attention, it got international attention. If the fire had not been put out, then by certain estimates, this fire would have continued for over 100 years. Imagine the magnitude of that fire. And as a result of that fire, I'm talking of a crisis situation where we managed because of reputation that we had to manage 10,000 people. I was personally involved. 10,000 people, rehabilitating them, taking care of them on a daily basis, and for a period of 4 to 6 months, when some people died because of certain other reasons, but it was all attributed to the company that I was working for, was a very difficult task. But since the company had a very good reputation of taking care of the environment and the people and surroundings around it, we had support from the locals, we had support from the administration, we had support from the government, we got excellent support from the police authorities, because if we had to go and approach the particular site, there were a couple of ways and we would come to know in advance that so-and-so road is closed today, you can't go. So we will be taking the other road. And this continued for about 6 months. We had to hire the single biggest aircraft that's available in the world. We had to, which was flown in from Canada. All this information is available in the public domain. We had to hire the biggest equipment that's available to fly it down, all kinds of government approvals. The aircraft couldn't land at the nearest airport to the site. The aircraft had to land at some other place, road clearances, everything else had to be organized. And because the company has been having a good reputation, all these approvals, all these clearances, all the support of the people, all of it was available in time. And that is how, and you probably are also aware that this took us about 6 months to put out that fire. So it has all been possible only because the company had a good reputation. There were sporadic incidents here and there, that happens everywhere, but the opinion makers were able to handle those unruly elements. And when we found that the situation demands hiring a PR agency, and this is where your example that agency hire karke you increase the numbers and then you say that you're good, we didn't fall into that trap. We did hire an agency. The agency discreetly found their way out who the opinion makers are. We sat with the opinion makers. We told them the truth. We told them what the technological challenges are, why it is taking time, because nobody wants to live in the camps for long periods of time. And ultimately, we did some direct marketing campaigns also through this PR agency. We had ads on the television, we had ads in the radio, we had ads in the media, and we explained on a daily basis, the progress and how much extra time or how much time it is likely to take to control the situation. And then it was a long grind, it was difficult, but the reputation of the company came in, something that could have gone out of hands completely. Something probably a fire of this magnitude probably would have ensured a private company stops all their operations, which has happened in a number of places. It has happened in Tamil Nadu with a major company. They have had to close down their operations. But because we had good reputation, because we had taken care in peace times through our CSR efforts, that we could survive this event. And this company, I'm very happy to tell you, has posted in the quarter ending December 22, the highest ever quarterly profits. So it's possible. If you have good reputation, you can survive. You can tide over the situation.
So, Mr. G, just 2 points, and then I'd like to come to Munawar with social media. Very interesting points that you've raised. The first point is, are we then saying reputation is directly linked to financials? Because that was your closing remark when you said that they've posted the highest profits.
No, I'm not saying, no, I'm not linked it with that. What I'm basically saying is a company which has gone through all the crisis. There are 2 kinds of licenses. You have a paper license from the government to operate. That's one, that's a piece of paper. You also need a social license to operate.
Absolutely.
It is not on a piece of paper. The same company, the same atmosphere, the same people, the same location, having gone through this kind of upheaval, you have to operate there. The company has operated well, and the company has been able to earn a huge profit. This is what I'm saying.
No, that's all right. Yeah, I just wondered because lots of people, like what they say is the reputation is intact because the financials are intact.
Yeah.
So, those are different perceptions. Just the last comment I'd like to make, Mr. Jeet, on what you were talking about. So, correct me if I'm wrong. So, the companies which are large in size, the companies which have an existing good reputation, they are the ones who are in this jeopardy where their reputation may be impacted. But the smaller companies which do not fall in that bracket probably don't ever face this jeopardy. Am I right in understanding you?
Too difficult to answer it in yes or no.
Okay.
It is situational. And it is the way the people who manage the organization at that point in time, how do they handle? It is not correct to say that reputation is important for large organizations. It is not important for smaller organizations. Reputation is equally important for all organizations. We all know, without taking name, let me give you another example. Without taking name, a company which came on the scene in US in 1999 in CRM software development had to take on some of the biggest software companies. They did not do anything. That was a small company. They are today giving competition to those two biggest companies of the world. How could they do that? They did some events, they did some such things which media took note of, and that is how people got interested, and then they have become big. So building reputation is equally important, whether it is for a large company. We have reputation today, and we have been saying from the very beginning, reputation has been built over a long period of time. It can go away in a minute by one simple small mistake by an employee, by any decision maker. So therefore, the companies which enjoy a good reputation, they have to keep it intact. And those which are upcoming, they have to work on their strategies so that they also are able to earn a good reputation. Let me finish by giving you one example. We have lots of white goods. There are 10, 12 brands of air conditioners which are being sold in the country. Some 10, 12 brands of washing machines which are being sold in the country. Having a good technically sound air conditioner which gives you efficiency, which gives you good cooling is one thing. But when the machine goes bad, service guy, whether he comes in time or not, is also equally important. You and I, we know which brand gives us good service, which brand does not give service. At the cost of getting service, you may not go for the most technically advanced equipment if you're not going to get good service. So therefore, equally important is this fact that if you have a reputation, you keep it intact, build on it. If you don't have one, please try and get some scores on the favorable side.
Thank you, Mr. Jeet. So just building on what you've said, so research also says products and services are the most important across the globe for you to be able to build a good reputation. And I would like to echo what Warren Buffett once said. It takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it. If you think about that, you'll do things differently. So whenever we've come back to you, and I have a couple of quick questions for you, Munawar. Has social media changed the process of reputation management? Now, with social media, it's becoming more and more difficult to manage company reputation. Would you be able to give us some quick examples on recent social media mishaps and the ways in which the situation was improved and reputation managed? I hope I've not placed too many questions for you, Munawar.
No,
So you
that's
can
fine.
take the floor and we can just take it forward.
I mean, today, every crisis, as a practitioner, we have more or less stopped differentiating between what is traditional media, what is social media, what is digital media, because everything is more or less connected and is feeding into one another. I mean, today news practically does not break, right? It tweets. Nobody is opening up the newspaper on the following day to find out what's the breaking news. They're looking for breaking views, right? Because the news has already broken. You already know what's happened in the previous on the last evening, right? And you're looking to build on that, and it's a real-time process that is going on. You see, television is debating what's been trending on social, and what's trending on social kind of becomes gets debated in parliament and so on. So it's all very much connected, and it has completely changed the entire process. There is no switch on and switch off in terms of reputation or crisis management or issues management or just doing business in general, right? For many of our global clients, we provide 24/7 real-time services, in a sense that one market kind of shuts and the other market takes over. Because as Dr. Biswajit also pointed out, like multinational organization operating in 100 countries, they just cannot afford to take off their eyes from a particular market at any given point of time, whether it is small or, we have examples of large clients, consumer companies, for whom India right now maybe just 2 or 3% of their global turnover, but a crisis here has wiped out $5 billion in one day in terms of market cap. So it is easier for them to shut down the entire India business than to vis-a-vis compared to the kind of impact it's having in some of the European or Western markets. So social media essentially has completely changed the game, and it is not something which is in fact the situation is just getting, I don't want to say worse, because then you are putting a value judgment on it, but it's evolving so rapidly that something which was true few months ago is no longer applicable as well. And for many clients, this is happening. The problem is that many of our clients, and they would agree to that they are guilty of looking at reputation management. They interchange crisis management and reputation management. Reputation management essentially, many times it so happens that our clients call us and say that, oh, my flight has crashed, and we will say that, where were we when you took off, in a sense that why were we not part of your entire business journey, so that we could have, been your eyes and ears on the ground, advising you of the speed breakers and the sharp turns that are approaching in different markets, for you to respond and take actions and be prepared. So reputation management essentially is an ongoing process, and social media has only just made it completely real time, is what I would say.
Whenever would we say that social media is something like a digital roulette? Because I don't think as of now, there's anything which we could say is very concrete where social media is concerned. But before we go on to digital roulette, I think we've got little time left. In case the audience has any questions, please post them in the chat window, because we can take the questions while we are talking. So please feel free to post your questions. So I'll keep talking to Munawar. So Munawar, when you talk about it, I feel it's more like a digital roulette. I have no idea. I have no idea where the needle is going to stop.
No, I completely agree. And I think
so how do we go ahead with it? So for instance, like I think just a couple of years back, what happened was there was this company which came up with a beautiful ad. But then what happened was the company was under the threat by a lot of people, and they said, you can't come up with this ad, right? And they had to withdraw this ad. It was close to Diwali. A beautiful ad.
Yeah.
Now, how does one really proceed where social media is concerned, and more so when it comes to issues related to reputation management? I think this ad is going to make me a brand activist.
Yes. Brand activism is something which, of course, has become, every brand wants to and has to stand for something. Consumers and stakeholders want a brand, or even business leaders to own and be, vocal about certain issues globally. So activism is something which is completely built into what any sort of communication that organizations do.
However, Munawar, I would like to go ahead in that way, but it boomerangs.
Well, that generally happens many a times when the communication is not stress tested properly. And everybody in the organization is not fully aware. So we work with a lot of clients, and we've seen those kind of examples on a very, it no longer surprises us. Let me put it this way, that the brand team devised a very nice campaign and they went ahead with it, but did not touch base with the policy team or the regulatory team. And otherwise the regulatory team would have told them, in 6 months, what you're saying may not essentially be applicable. So stress testing your communications, what you put out, is a very important step that organizations need to do, and it's got to do with the way organizations function, the way the structure in an organization, etc. So it's not essentially only about external communication; it's also how internally organizations are structured to deal with these kind of things. This reminds me that the Advertising Standards Council of India recently put out a release which said that more than 5,000 they received more than 5,000 complaints of misleading advertisements from consumers, and almost 90% time that the brand had to tweak the advertisement or the communication. Now, these may be exaggerated numbers, but even 10% is equally powerful.
Right? Damaging, yeah.
And that directly impacts brand reputation as well. And the reason why these things are happening is because, in my view, and what we've seen with especially in the healthcare sector, especially in the auto sector, even in cases where brands claim victories too soon in terms of advertisement and so on, where everybody in the organization is not on the same page, and things go out which could have been caught at the design table as well.
So Munawar, there's another question. So there's a question, interesting question. So either Biswajit or Munawar, you could take it on, and then I just have a couple of questions more. We can go to that. So Rishabh here says, what will be the case when brand is in a mood to rebrand itself with a new view for its customers, or they want to shift a new segment to a new segment of consumers? So, either of you would take that question.
Well, yeah, if I could just respond to that, brand revamps, repositioning a brand, etc., happens all the time. And there are arguments for and against it. Sometimes, sometimes your brand is so powerful and you have such a loyal customer base that disrupting that for something larger that the brand may be targeting is a call that it's a business call that the brand has to take internally. So there is no right and wrong answer to that. But many a times, brands fiddle with the entire product and entire architecture, and existing customers, they lose their relevance. Well, if that's the objective, as long as that's the objective that the brand has, they may very well go about doing it. For example, let's look at
this happens mostly when there are mergers and acquisitions.
Yes.
So
yes.
This normally emerges at that time. Yeah.
But just to quickly, make a point that, for example, although we are not taking names, but let's say, for example, like a Google, for example, right? If Google decides to enter the banking sector tomorrow, okay, and starts a bank, my 8-year-old would be more keen to start a savings account with a Google rather than one of the, because that's the brand that they are most familiar with. So they are not.
That's your legitimacy spillover.
Yes. Exactly.
So it's a legitimacy spillover effect, right? That's brilliant. So let me ask so Rishabh, I hope you're okay with that question. And Samruddhi, Rishabh has answered your question. So I have two more quick questions, if I may. So one is for Biswajit and the other is for Munawar. We have very little time. So what is the role, Biswajit, the question's for you, the role of social media influencers in reputation creation and management? So I would request you, Biswajit, to keep it short so that we can also go to Munawar for the last question.
Role of social media we have been discussing so far is extremely important in building reputation for an organization. Let me again, as a practitioner, come to a real life example, an incident which had taken place between two companies, both of them being Maharatna companies. It was again an incident where leakages took place and ultimately it caught fire. And none of the companies were willing to accept whose responsibility it was. When the responsibility was decided, then the locals came in the way and they would not allow any work to be done. And it was actually a situation of impasse, complete impasse. And this company ultimately decided to hire a PR company. And PR companies have an important role to play in today's world. The PR company actually went from house to house, door to door, as laymen, not as somebody who have been hired by this company, because if that was the case, then they would be shooed out. So as just to understand what their problems are, what their issues are, once they were able to research it out and find out what the issues are, then they put out a plan of action. They went to those people who were a little more reasonable explained the whole thing to them, put out campaigns on a sustained basis. And that is how people realized that not allowing the company to do the work is not the best way forward. That will only jeopardize all of us in the long run. The company can survive because they can operate somewhere else. They are operating in many other places. But we will actually run out of money. We will not get what we wanted, or our sustenance will be at peril. So these social media actions that were taken as a result of hiring of the PR agency put in place a complete schematic where the locals understood that it is important for them to let the company operate for their own good, for the company's benefit, for the society's benefit. And that is how the company could actually tide over the situation and start their operations once again. So social media has an extremely important role to play, something that PR agencies, specialized PR agencies are able to do nowadays.
Thanks, Biswajit. So last question to you, Munawar. Let me build on what Biswajit has said. So my last question to you would be, normally when we talk about reputation management, people think it's a PR function. So is it really a PR function, or does it permeate across all functions? Because I don't want us to close on that note that it is, only a PR function, while people have this kind of idea, this kind of impression. But you are in a company which will probably be doing more of reputation management than anyone else.
Before Munawar says, ma'am, I would like to just make a point. In crisis situations, we are hiring a PR agency. Otherwise, in our experience of work in the field, what we have found is, like, HR is not HR department's job. Every field manager is an HR person. So the company people who are at the forefront are the PR people for the company, who are having boundary relationship with all the other stakeholders. So this particular example of hiring a PR agency is only limited in crisis situations.
Sure. Thanks, Biswajit, for clarifying that. Thanks for clarifying that. Go ahead, Munawar, if you could give us an answer to that question.
As just echoing what Dr. Biswajit said, PR is too important. Reputation is too important a function to be left alone to PR people or to any other function for that matter. It is a board level function. Everybody should be losing sleep at the senior most level as far as an organization's reputation is concerned. And it is, as much as it is about external communication, it is also about how internally an organization is structured. For example, I'll give you an example of one recent crisis simulation exercise that we were running for an organization. And we opened up with a particular scenario of a crisis that the company was facing. And for a response, everybody started looking towards the CEO. And our immediate response was that the CEO is on a 12-hour flight to the US from India. And you need to respond in the next 4 hours. And nobody really had a clue as to how they will respond to it, which means that, institutionally, structurally, you are not geared up to respond to a challenge that an organization may face. And it is very independent, individual-centric, rather than the capabilities being built at an institution level within the organization. So therefore, reputation, whether it is in a crisis situation where you have more ears, from the board level people to, put across your point. But as I said, it's an ongoing function. It's a moving goalpost in today's day and age. And it's not. Essentially it's not a destination. It's a journey. You're always on the journey of building and maintaining and protecting a brand's or corporate's reputation. So it's, of course, it's all that everybody, all the external and internal touch points are reputation drivers. Either they can, they can contribute on the negative side or the positive side, depending on how the organization wants to treat it.
Thanks, Munawar. So thanks, Biswajit. Let me try summing up what everyone's been talking about. So I have 2 slides. And I would like us to just quickly take a look at those slides, and that should be probably our closing point, and we can talk about it. So just close it. Yeah. So whenever we talk about reputation, how does it really create value for business? It enhances business growth and revenues. Okay, has this sharing window stopped?
Yeah, I think it's stopped.
Okay, I'll just do it again. Is that okay? Can you all see? Right. So it enhances business growth and revenues. It provides an edge over competitors. It's a societal help during crisis. It helps attract best talent. It secures repeat loyal customers. Just 1 minute. I think the slide is not moving. Right. So it is difficult to manage. Just 1 second. It is, no, it goes to the first one, right? Okay. Yeah, it's difficult to manage because it's difficult to manage in times of social media. It's intrinsically linked to, there seems to be some problem with it. I think I'll have to do something with this. Then only would it flash on. Right. Right. So it is intrinsically linked to organizational trust. It protects the company's license to operate in the marketplace. It attracts investors. It acts as a coating in tough times. Together with that, there were 2 other points that emerged, 2 or 3 other points, which we do not have here on the screen. One is the issue of how to really build trust, because there cannot be a trust deficit, which if you can build trust and if you have a good reputation, it lowers the cost of your business. We also talked about the legitimacy spillover effect. We talked about authenticity of a company. And together with that, we talked about the role of PR during a crisis. So we cannot not do reputation. We have to do reputation. The question is how, where, when. And I think examples have been provided by Biswajit, examples have been provided by Munawwar. We made a conscious effort not to take the names of companies, but I'm sure all of you would have understood what companies we are really talking about. So it is reputation management. While we are going ahead, it is still a digital relay. Just pin all your hopes on the right number and you will be a success. Is there anything else you would like to add, Biswajit or Munawwar, or we can call it a day?
No, ma'am, thank you. Thank you for having us. You've written a book on corporate reputation. So thanks a lot for hearing our side as well. You learned a lot from, the examples and the structure and the theory that you put across in that book as well. So just wanted to shout out for that as well.
Thank you so much, Munawwar. Biswajit. Thank you so much, Biswajit and Munawwar, for being here. And thank you so much to all of you who have participated in the webinar. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.